And welcome back to Crash Media Paranormal Conversations with Crash. My name is Craig Rackley,
And I'm Ashley Kirkland.
and we are Crash Media. Tonight we're going to talk about a place that we went about a year ago. It is called Jasper County Jail, also known as Old Pickens County Jail, in Jasper County, Georgia. And we'll get into it right now. And have you been, Ashley? How was your week?
It's been great. How about yours?
It was eventful, but it was nice. It was nice. I'm glad to get back here and see all of our friends and our family on our wonderful little podcast. But tell us a little bit about Jasper County Jail.
Okay, so like Craig said, we went and investigated this property in 2023, so
Mm-hmm.
last year, and it's in Jasper County, Georgia. Um, Jasper County Jail, also known as Old Pickens County Jail. This is one of those locations that we investigated, but we didn't get a whole lot of evidence, such as like EVPs, things like that. But we walked away with some really cool experiences.
Oh yeah, most
Um,
definitely.
yeah, and so basically, this location it's kind of like a museum now. But back in its working days as a jail, the original building that stands today is not the original building. So the one that stands today was built in 1906,
Mm-hmm.
and it replaced the old rock jail.
Right.
So there was another jail in the exact location, and then they rebuilt it with this one. And so this property, the history of it goes back over 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the jail still houses a non-functioning gallows. And one thing that was really cool is that since this is a museum, you can go in and kind of see these things. And they did have a gallows hanging upstairs in the jail area. However, no one was ever executed on this device or on the property. But just kind of think about it for a second. They had this there
Yeah.
while people were imprisoned there.
Right. They had to walk
Imagine
across
if,
it every day.
yeah, and they had to see it. And
Mm-hmm.
just imagine that feeling that someone would have having to see that every day, or
Right.
live in one of those jail cells with that
Oh,
right
it's horrible.
outside your.
Yeah, and just spending the night there and walking on that grate that slips down. It was weird because as soon as you walk over it, you're like, oh my God, am I about to follow a story? It was
Yeah.
pretty intense. But just walking around and just seeing a gallows hanging above you and a noose, it's not something you want to see every day.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was very intimidating
Oh,
for
absolutely.
everyone there. Um, but yeah, and so another thing that was really interesting about this property, the sheriff and his family would live there on property. So back when it was a functioning jail, the sheriff and his wife, his children, they
Mm-hmm.
all lived there in the jail. And so downstairs was the living quarters, and upstairs where they would have the jail cells.
Right.
Um, yeah, and so the jail was ordered to be closed by a federal court in 1980. And so the current building that's there was functioning from 1906 until 1980. And I want this quote right here to kind of paint a picture for you,
Mm-hmm.
for the kind of conditions that people were living in at this jail. So there's a famous quote displayed in the jail. It might be a historical site, but as a jail, it is deplorable. And that was Judge Marion T. Pope Jr. He was the senior judge of the Blue Ridge Superior Court Circuit in 1978. So just think about how bad the conditions people were living in there at the
Oh,
jail
absolutely.
for it to be ordered by federal court to be shut down.
Well, they said that
And
at some points, the inmates would be hanging out of the windows, like literally bodily hanging out of the windows, like throwing things to the people down on the street. People down on the street throwing like things up at them, and it was so crowded that there was just no room. And if you've ever been in Georgia in the summertime, it's hot. It is hot,
Yeah.
and that is a stone building, and it was hot the night we were there, but it was ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, and just very stuffy and
Hmm.
just yeah, there was like, a lot of moisture kind of gets trapped in there too. So think
Oh,
about like mold and things
oh
like
yeah,
that. And
and
but yeah, it was
rust.
very tight space upstairs. And the jail cells, they would cram so many people in one cell.
Hmm.
And just imagine what that would have been like. And I think too about like the wife and the children of the sheriff that would be living downstairs. Imagine just knowing all this is above you and
Right.
then trying to live with your family downstairs. There's just probably a lot of energies and emotions happening constantly at that building.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, yeah, and so we went with the Tuscaloosa Paranormal Research Group. And one thing that we do when we first arrive at a location is, well, we take a little tour, we kind of get to know our way around the building, and then we'll set up like our DVR system.
Right.
We'll leave like a recorder rolling just to capture any noises or any video of anything that might happen while we're not in the building. Because once we get all of that set up, and when you run the whole DVR system, that does take a while to get everything set up.
Right.
We'll usually take that time to step out of the building for a while, let our equipment run with no one there, and then maybe we can kind of play something back later and catch a video or an audio of something, knowing that the building was empty. But during that time, we'll just go and have dinner before returning to the location to start our actual investigation.
Right.
But yeah, and that's also a good time for us to kind of go over a game plan of what all we plan on doing
Hmm.
that night. But also just, to kind of relax and hang out with each other, have some dinner, have some laughs.
Uh huh. Yeah, absolutely. And some of our best evidence has been when nobody else is in the building. Because we have cameras everywhere, we have audio running everywhere, and over the years, we've gotten, several very interesting things with what we call unattended sessions.
Hmm.
And it's great
Yeah.
to get a little food in our bellies, get ready for a long night.
Yeah,
So
you've
it's
got to
fun.
build up that energy before starting an all-night
Ooh,
investigation.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-mm-mm.
But the town itself was very charming. It's a nice little town, and then you have that jail just sitting right there. It's pretty ominous, that stone building. Another really interesting feature about this jail was it's kind of like um, the little, what would you call the little peephole where
The
they would,
little keyhole, yeah.
yeah,
The sheriff that ran the jail, he had to know what was going on at all times. So he actually had a peephole installed, and any intake, any prisoner intake, he watched the entire intake from his bedroom. So if you go into the bedroom, there is literally a keyhole. And this view that you have right now is what is in the bedroom. And he just slid that back, and on the other side, he could see the entire intake room. So he watched every prisoner as they were getting booked and getting ready, and he got a feel for them as he did
yeah.
that.
And they also said that the way that the design
Hmm.
is of that kind of that concaved little area
Hmm.
facing the prison, it would amplify sound. And
Yes.
so that's another thing, he would listen to their
Hmm.
conversation and see if he could get anything, prisoner talk.
Exactly, because he would put his ear to that peephole, and it would just
Yeah.
amplify that sound. That's a little creepy, just a little creepy.
Yeah. Another feature in the building, was where how they would pass food from the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
from the sheriff's living quarters into the area with the inmates. And so they had this little slot where they would just kind of put the plates there, and then whoever would be on the other side would take it and then go pass it out to all the inmates upstairs.
Yeah. And that would make for interesting dinner conversations because these areas are basically the way it's set up. You're in the kitchen of the living quarters. You walk out onto the porch, turn, and walk into the jail door. So this pass through is almost right outside of the kitchen. So people would take the food from the kitchen, walk through, pass it through. It was a very interesting setup, something you don't see every day. Most definitely.
Also on site was a cabin. Now, this cabin was moved to this location. So it
Mm-hmm.
was not built or original to this location. So it was known as the Kirby Quinton cabin, and it was moved there in 1997. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we did investigate in the cabin. We didn't get any activity um, or anything, suspicious, any EVPs or anything out there. Um, but the cabin itself was built in 1830, so it has, I'm sure, like a lot of history as well. It was built by a Cherokee called Charles Dunbean, and the cabin later became part of the frontier dwelling occupied by 1866 by Stephen Kirby and his family. So a lot of history there.
Right, exactly. And it was really cool. It's nice to see something, one of the things about the United States, our concept of old is not quite like Europe.
Yeah.
As far as when I lived in Spain for a while, I sat on walls that were like 2,000 years old. Here we have something a couple of hundred years old, and it's considered very old. But it is so cool to see something like that because, number one, they're beautiful, and the workmanship of them, of cabins like this, is incredible. And the fact that they moved it, from its original location to there, as a part of the museum, that's really awesome. I love that. So I have a
Yeah.
thing with history. I love history. I live in a historic home, and old structures are like my thing.
Mhm. Also, just it was nice kind of having that little structure that was
Yeah,
very cozy inside.
yeah, it really
And
was.
so in the jail, it's hard. It's got that feel to it, but then you can go over to the cabin and it's
Hmm.
got more of that cozy, warm feeling to
Even though
it.
it had a very creepy doll inside.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely had some things in there that fit the ambiance of paranormal
Right,
and creepy stuff, but compared to the jail, it was nice to kind of go and sit in there for a little bit.
right.
But yeah, so some of the things that we did experience there, and like I said, we didn't walk away with a ton of EVPs or things like that, but we
Hmm.
did have some experiences.
Right.
And so I believe it was myself, um, Laura Lineberry, and Heather Booth, two of our other investigators with Tuscaloosa Paranormal Research Group. We went upstairs because we thought maybe just a full, like, female presence would help kind of draw out some activity, from mostly, like, male inmates. We thought maybe this would stir up something.
Uh huh. Yeah.
And so we went upstairs and we were going to do an EVP session, but we also had a piece of equipment with us that is called the tripwire. And so we had it, this was, it was a pretty new piece of equipment that we've had, so we've only used it at a few locations, but this was probably the best um, evidence or activity we've gotten using this piece of equipment
Hmm.
out of the other times that we have used it. So basically, do you want to explain how it works?
It's basically a row of EMF detectors. The idea is you put it down a hallway or put it in a space, and theoretically, you can watch a spirit move as it moves from one light to the other. Some investigators will use it as sort of like to indicate yes and no, a certain color for yes, because it's several different colors. Certain color for yes, certain color for no, a certain light for yes, a certain light for no, and so forth. We've used it on several occasions in uh, the To Kill a Mockingbird courthouse. We got some activity from that. But this was a pretty good night with it. I am not, it's not my favorite thing to use, but it is pretty fun to use.
Yeah, and we've had it at some locations where we feel like we were getting some false readings,
Right,
and the lights would just kind of randomly go off.
right.
However, that's why I feel it was pretty significant at this location because it wasn't happening randomly like we've had it before. And
Right.
any equipment, in ghost hunting, you can get false readings and things like that. So you need to really know how to read or understand the
Right.
equipment to make sure that you're not getting something just like random.
Exactly, and you just you have to go into every investigation with a lot of skepticism. You've got to look at the environment. You've got to be able to admit to yourself when something is just not working. I've seen a lot of investigators that will sort of like, for example, if one light starts blinking, they'll start focusing on that one light, and it's like you're really just not really correlating anything. It's just random, and we have had that happen. You have to be skeptical. Not everything is paranormal.
Yeah. Yeah, and one way that you can kind of determine if something is just kind of like giving you some random false readings or if you're actually communicating with someone by asking control questions.
Yes.
And so let's say if we have the trip wire out and a light flashes, we might ask a question and it flashes, and before assuming that, oh, I'm getting a response, ask the question several times, maybe the same question or other control questions.
Ask it in
If
another
it
way.
doesn't, yeah, if it doesn't continue to go off on command, then probably that one little flash was a false reading. It was kind of
Right.
picking up maybe some static in the air or something like that.
Absolutely.
But when you ask, when you ask control questions and you get a response, and then maybe ask some other questions, come back to that control question, ask it again, it goes off again, and so you get a consistent reading with these lights. Then you can assume that maybe I am communicating
Right.
with someone. And we had that experience at this location. So Heather, Laura, and we went upstairs to the jail cells. And so we had the tripwire kind of spread out. We're going to show you a video in a second where I was sitting and I had my camera. I'm kind of at a little bit at a distance from where Laura and Heather were. I could see down this little narrow hall. So they were sitting on the other side asking some questions. In the video, you're going to see the lights flash, but again, it's kind of like behind a wall, but you will see it light up. And so a couple of things what we were doing at the very beginning, we were trying to establish yes and no communication.
Right.
When you're dealing with lights and things like that, trying to communicate yes or no questions are the best, because you can't, ask a specific question and get, an answer with a light. So
Morse code.
it's best to ask yes or no questions. So, for example, are we speaking with a man? And, if it lights up, then, another thing that we do is establish a yes light and a no light.
Right.
And so you'll hear Laura kind of explain to the spirit, show us like which light you want yes to be. So we had already asked several questions, and this video clip is going to be kind of shortened from, it was a very long session. And also keep in mind, we did this session for like 45 minutes and didn't get any lights flashing or anything happening except for this concentrated time frame. But we were asking control questions. We were getting we were getting flashes and responses on the lights. So we asked, which light do you want yes to be? And then we had a light flash.
Right.
Which light do you want no to be? We had another light flash. So we're like, okay, so you want this one to be yes? It would light up yes. You want this one to be no? That one would light up no. And so we're like, okay, so now we can communicate. We're going to ask you questions and you let us know yes or no what the answer is. And so we established yes and no communication. So we started asking questions. And so on this first video, you're going to see all of that kind of happening. And so just listen carefully for what the things that Laura is saying, and then watch for the flashes of light.
All right, here we go.
So one way to communicate with us is we can do some yes, okay, good, I see that right there. So can you give us maybe a way to show us, thank you, right there again. Can you show us something for yes? The answer yes.
Yes, okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was a good one.
Now, oh, okay, good. So we got this and this. Were you a prisoner here? When you were here, was it a bad place?
Yeah.
Yes.
I got shut down.
Can we call you Jack? Do you go by another name? Yes. Let me ask again, were you a prisoner? Yes. Okay, you're a prisoner, but you're not Jack. Is there more than one of you here? Okay, are you the only one here? Are you the only one here like you? Yes. Oh, wow. Very good.
That was pretty cool.
So, yeah, and and that's the thing. A lot of times when we use the tripwire, if you get one hit, but then it's not consistent, then it's just interference or something
Right.
messing with it. But when we were getting intelligent responses and they were consistent with it, then that was definitely a time that I feel the tripwire was acting as a really good source of communication for us.
Right.
And so also just kind of like playing off what I said a minute ago about using yes and no questions and that working better when you're using something with lights. There is a way you can dig a little bit deeper. For example, we're going to show another video where we were finding out a little bit more. So we had established that we were communicating with a male inmate. And so we wanted to find out a little bit more, and we weren't really getting anything with like our digital recorders, like no EVPs, but we started asking questions about, for an example, are you under the age of 30? That's a yes or no question.
Right.
And so we would get that it would respond that it was under 30. And so then we would kind of play off of that. Okay, well, are you younger than 20? No. Okay, so you're between 20 and 30. And so in this next video, you're going to see Laura, or you'll hear Laura going through the numbers. 21. Are you 22? Are you 23? And then she kept going until we got a response, knowing that, okay, so we were able to establish an age. And so that just connects us a little bit more to who we were speaking with. And so, there's ways, and you can kind of use even yes or no questions to like find more, dig a little deeper about, who you're communicating with.
Right.
Of course, we weren't able to get like a name with that. But at least it kind of gives us a reference that we can kind of go off of, and then maybe later research and see if we can find out more. So let's go ahead and play this next video clip.
Okay, here we go.
Are you a woman? No
That's
for
a no.
woman.
Okay.
No for woman. Are you a man? Is the light you just light up, was that a yes or a no? So if you're a woman, light up the one in front of me. If you're a man, light up the one to the left. Okay, you're a man. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Now we can talk.
Yes, now we can talk. So you're a man. Are you younger than 30 years when you were here? Were you? Yes. Okay. Were you older than 20? Yes. Okay. Oh.
Whoa.
So you were 20, is that correct? 20 years old? 21? 22? 23? 24? Were you older than 25? Were you 25? Oh, yes. Okay, so we have a
She said younger.
All right.
Yeah, so that just kind of shows you how we were getting kind of that consistent communication. And like I said, we had used that tripwire for about 45 minutes.
Right. With nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing that was
Except for-
easily. Yeah.
Yeah. But then we did have that activity during a very concentrated time frame. And then after that, after, several minutes of that, it just kind
It
of
just faded
left,
out.
And that's when, well,
Mhm.
yeah.
Right.
So, and that's, so we did have some good experiences that night. It's definitely a place that, housed a lot of emotions and history.
Oh, absolutely. And it had a vibe. It definitely had a vibe. It was a cool place. We actually spent the night there. We all slept on the floor in the kitchen and the living room and the bedroom. We just sacked out all night. So it was pretty cool. I don't know about you. I love being able to sleep in a location because you can leave everything running. You really get some good experiences that way.
Yeah, and there's been times that we've, heard things or
Been woken up.
at night that'll wake you up, and that's
Right.
pretty,
Creepy.
exciting when that happens.
Yeah, so if you ever get to sleep in a location, that's like the best. That's my favorite thing. All right, but that was our investigation at Old Jasper County Jail. It was definitely an experience.
Yeah, and I've seen this location featured on shows before, and so I know there's been people who have gotten a lot of activity and everything there. So it's a great place to visit.
But I wouldn't want to live there.
No.
All right. So again, we invite everyone who is watching. If you have any questions, our email is at the top: crashmediaparanormal@gmail.com. We would love for you to send in videos. We have a regular segment where viewers will send in videos and we discuss them. We talk about them. We debunk if we can debunk, and we really want to be blown away. So send your stuff in. Let us see it.
Yeah, and before we go, I do have a question, and I want the audience to answer this as well.
Okay.
If you could spend the night completely alone and with no lights, no flashlight or anything, in a haunted location, where would it be and why?
Oh, I definitely want to hear that. That is a good question. All right. Who, me? Let me think. In the death tunnel of Waverly Hills.
Where you heard the loud...
Where I heard, yeah.
Like,
I think I could be a big boy. I could be brave. I could do that. What about you?
I would like to think, or I would like to say, that I could stay completely alone with no lights all night at a really creepy location like Old South Pittsburgh Hospital or something.
Which we have done before. You were not with us, but we have spent the night a couple of times there, and it was hard to get to sleep. It was really hard to get to sleep.
Imagine completely alone, though. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I could do that. I would like to say I could, But I don't know. I would probably choose one of the more like old historic homes, kind
Yeah.
of like Drish or something like that, that is more cozy and,
Lived in.
there's, yeah, a bed and roaches aren't gonna crawl over me. And I could probably do that. I could stay at one of the, old, houses turned museums,
Right,
but
right.
I don't know.
Nice.
I'm just hold on. Let me just assume that I'm brave, and I'll say Old South Pittsburgh
There you
Hospital.
go.
All
Okay,
alone.
okay. I will. We can make that happen. We can definitely make that happen. All right. Well, we do definitely invite you to check out Crash Media, all of our other podcasts that we have up, and also follow our channel, Crash Media Paranormal, at YouTube. We're also on TikTok. We're on Instagram. Everything. So, Ashley, do you have any parting words for us?
I think that's it. Just thank you all for watching, and
Absolutely.
we appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. You all have a wonderful night. And Ashley, I will talk to you very soon.
All right.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.